Yo, yo, we are live, folks. We are live. Just give me a second here. I am getting these questions in order so we can have a fun little Coffee Buzz Friday. It's a little bit later in the afternoon for me. I went for a bike ride today, and I think it's going to play in really well for this first question. And again, I know there can be an asterisk to this. I don't know the questions until I start the show, but I do have the questions out in front of me, so I can see them if I peek into them. But when I say something like that, I don't want the audience think that I'm out here lying to them because I'm not. But it's raining. It was a good downpour today in Minnesota. Kind of started around 2. I was in New York for the weekend, which it was pouring in New York. And then I went to Philly, which Philly was pretty nice, actually. I've been back here for the last couple of days, and when it was raining in New York, it was just not enjoyable because it was also freezing. Today it was 70 degrees and raining. And as they say, April showers bring May flowers. You can already start to see the trees starting to bud. And so let's get right into it and let's dive into Coffee Buzz Friday, because as I think about how much I've enjoyed today in Minnesota and the excitement of starting to see these leaves start to form on these trees. I live in a wetland with a bunch of trees, a little forest vibe tucked away, and the balcony that wraps around my house is surrounded by tree coverage, and you can just tell in about a month this balcony is going to be so beautiful to have coffee at in the morning, because you're just going to be just entrenched in tree coverage, and I can't wait for it. So the first question from Ellie Taxtall. I got to see Ellie. I've known Ellie for a long time, but I also got to see her in Arizona. The Taxtall family is very special to me. Beautiful people, Minnesota people, and just a very special family to me. So I really appreciate the starting question. And the question lines up perfectly. What are you most looking forward to now that you're living in Minnesota? What I'm most looking forward to now that I'm living in Minnesota is it's basically that bike ride that I just have. I'm not looking forward to the bike ride necessarily, although I am, in the kayaks that I also have access to, because I will be enjoying that as well. But I'm mostly interested in the simple life that comes with Minnesota, and just the pace, right? And the excitement and how happy people are this time of year. But also, I recognized it right away, but also it's just nice being around people in Minnesota, and people who, it's just a good culture. It's good people. It's a clean state. It's calm, it's quiet, but the pace is what I'm most excited about living here again and being back here for the summer, is just the trails that you can go from. I mean, I rode a trail today for maybe 10 miles and was getting through different cities, towns, I should say, and I was going all around the lakes, and just such a cool vibe. Not towns, neighborhoods, sorry. But I really am excited mostly about that. I'd also say the other most excited thing I am about being in Minnesota is the sauna culture. I mean, I was raised in the sauna culture being here. I learned about sauna and cold in Minnesota. Now, granted, I know a lot of my brother and sisters in the sauna culture, they had to withstand the winter, and I bypassed that. So I'm sure I'll get a little bit of heat from some of the people up here. Shout out to Papa Glenn and Sauna Day. Sauna Days is coming up here in northern Minnesota, May 2nd to May 4th. I'm really looking forward to reconnecting with old friends and getting involved in that and jumping into Lake Superior and doing a bunch of sauna rounds. That's going to be a ton of fun. But that's probably the second part of what I'm most excited about being here, is just being back in that culture, the wood burning saunas, the just the communal sense to it, the relaxation sense to sauna culture here. It's just not as rigid, which is ironic because as far as I'm concerned, from all the travel I've done in the country, it's sort of it's like the home, It's the center of sauna in the country is Minnesota. And Minnesotans are least rigid with protocols and structure around their saunas. It's just more of a way of life. And I think that that's replicated off of countries like Finland, which this culture and climate is extremely similar to what Finland is. So those are the two things: the simplicity of being here, the pace. I really enjoy the pace here. I enjoy the people and the nature. Obviously, you get nature all over the place. So I'm not going to compare nature to other parts of the world or country and nature, but then that final part being that sauna culture and just getting back in the mix with just good people, getting good sweats in, getting into the saunas. I had a buddy of mine, Ken Zen, who is a sauna builder. I think he's, if you look more on Ken Zen on Instagram, I think that's what his Instagram tag is. He was just over having some tea with me. We're talking through sauna builds, and he's just got such a beautiful mind. But anywhere you go around here, you got people who are willing to talk to you about a sauna. So I really appreciate that question. Shout out to the Textile family. Much love. Love those people. Always wish them the best. D Rove, big Mr. Sorovi from Minnesota or from Michigan. Spent a little time in Minnesota actually, but Dan, shout out the question: how has fatherhood changed your perspective? How has fatherhood changed your perspective? So obviously, for those listening, I'm a new father. I had a kid a few months ago, a little over 3 months now, and that's a great question. Dan gave me a book, Meditations of Fatherhood, I believe is a Stoic book off Marcus Aurelius. He gave me this a few months before Oliver, my son, was born. And I read a little bit of it, and I think he told me not to read it until Oliver was born. And I've maintained the idea that I'm going to wait until he can read and then read that book with him. And if that's inaccurate, please correct me. But how has fatherhood changed your perspective? I think the interesting thing about being a dad in the first couple months is that your life goes so drastically from not being a dad forever to being a dad, and then you're instantaneously just a dad in a moment. And now all of a sudden I just am a dad. I don't feel like that's big or small necessarily. It's just interesting how you're in the back of your head, you're just regularly a father, right? You have coffee with somebody, you meet somebody, it just comes up. And I say that in the most neutral way, right? I just mentioned I was in New York recently and I left as early as I could. I actually bought a flight earlier. I changed my flight to come home earlier. I would have never done that years ago. I maybe would have never done that. I mean, I think I would have got closer doing that once I got married a little bit. But pre-marriage, pre-kids, I was never making moves like that because I didn't, I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have anywhere to be. It was life on the road was life on the road. And if I went home to wherever I was living, it, it was just another thing of being alone. I don't say that negatively. I love being alone. I think that's one of the things that's changed my perspective of fatherhood is the regularity in which you're making decisions. And even though my kid is so infant stage, I could see how it evolves as they get older, but you're still making decisions regularly because you're for somebody besides yourself, whether it's I've got a how long has my wife been with him? Do I need to give her a break? Okay, I need to move my flight up because I've been gone for a few days and I need to get back with the family. Obviously there's an element of missing my kid as well too. But I think just the change in decision making and the absolute need of responsibility has changed my perspective. And I've talked to a friend about this recently. I talked about this with marriage as well too, because they're two concepts that are really unique, not unique. Well, I was going to say they're unique to humans, but I think they could be unique to humans. Like obviously you look at apes, they have kids and they care for their kids, but then you have things like snakes. I mean, a snake will eat their young. Like I don't know how in depth I'm not thinking in the moment right now of how in depth the animal kingdom is in marriages and connections and children and raising children. So maybe it is unique to humans, right? And so you look at human development, human consciousness, and the way in which we evolve into maturity. It's sort of what's the goal of individual life, right? What are you trying to achieve? And I have it in front of me, so I'm going to read this quote that I love that I saw by Margaret Atwood. The desire to be loved is the last illusion. Give it up and you will be free. And I loved that quote. The desire to be loved is the last illusion. Give it up and you will be free. And I think the way in which I read that and see that is because of how regularly myself, and I see this in other people, the pain and suffering that we experience in our need to be loved or our wanting to be loved, whether we didn't feel like we had enough love from our parents, we don't have enough love from our friends, our teachers, our coaches, our siblings, significant others, whatever that is, it still remains an illusion, which is the coolest word I found in that quote. And love being the last illusion, right? So I talk often about how illusionary our jobs are and how illusionary pretty much everything materially is in reality, because it has to be, right? We don't know, we can't put reality into words. We just aren't capable of that, but we're able to put reality into our perspective and kind of create a framework around our perspective and reality, and then we can put words and meaning to tangible things in reality and accept those as true. And that allows us to sort of play in the sandbox together metaphorically. But it's all an illusion. And we don't often talk about, we can talk about how if you realize that your job is an illusion, it's a made up, it's material, then you can sort of release your desire to have to be something, right? You don't have to do anything or be anything. Now, I'm not telling you not to do anything or be anything. You should pursue material success. It's a beautiful thing that we need to do as humans, is to achieve things. It also, as achieving things, is what brings us resources and helps us survive. That's essentially what we're just programmed to do, is survive. And so having material things, material resources, material success, that is a logical thing to pursue. But your job is still made up. The entire thing is made up. Hierarchies, that can be more maybe biological in terms of survival, but I mean, politics is an illusion. Sports is an illusion. The job career that you have is an illusion. So when I read the one about love, that one hit me, and I really considered that. Why am I saying all these things in my perspective towards fatherhood? Because when you have a child, you're in this weird position as a dad, as in fatherhood, because you have this thing that that you were raised in the way in which the world raised you and how you saw things. And so then you want to unconsciously just sort of run it back, right? And I'm still my own me. I still love me and love being me, and I love being alone. And yet I have a wife and a kid that I'm responsible for. And so I'm on the team. So I still have to manage and maintain this team quality assets of mine that I can hand off to others. And also looking at it as the fact of my child is completely dependent on me at the time, right? So I have to be independent, but then I also have to be able to supply somebody who is dependent. And that makes me entirely responsible for the life of the dependent infant, which is where I think you get all those decision makings and responsibilities that are just thrown onto your plate immediately. And I think that inevitably changes your perspective. But without the kid, are you ever going to reach that level of responsibility in your life that requires, it doesn't have to be maturation phase of positive or negative, but it is a maturity phase that you have to evolve into. And that's where I think it's been unique to go about life and just knowing in the back of my head that I'm a dad. And it's changed me in just the way I speak, or the way in which I perceive time, or the way in which I think of things, or the way in which I talk to people, or job opportunities that I'm willing to do or not willing to do, right? Because all of that's changed because I have another organism on the planet that I need to be responsible for. It's fascinating. But why I use that concept about the last illusion being love, the desire to be loved from Margaret, and tie it all together into this side of, is it that seems fair and real and rational that we would have children or get married to continuously essentially kill off parts of ourselves and be less of who we are, to be more selfless and serving to others. That makes sense to me, that you would find a result of maturity that is pursued out of that. But then also, what I've learned about the kid instantly as an infant is none of my ego seems to be praised by my infant child. My child has no care about any material success I have in the world, and or any material achievement I'm pursuing. It only cares about eating, sleeping, and being safe. It's completely dependent on me. And so I think that it's taught me a lot about, I think that's why that quote stuck out to me. The desire to be loved is the last illusion. Give it up and you'll be free. I think that's been my immediate, deeper Harvey versus Harvey perspective change. Is so much of earlier life, when you are 100% you, responsible for nothing else. I think that you, at least from my experience, you search for love in all the wrong places. Isn't that a song? No, you search for love in an illusionary sense. So you seek the desire to be loved because of your Instagram followers or your Instagram status. You search to be loved or seek to be loved because you have a job, you got a really big, nice, high paying job at a young age or faster than other people. You have multiple college degrees, or you're a professional athlete, all these sorts of things. You've written books, published books, whatever. You traveled the world, you're a traveler. All the things that people do, right, to seek and desire love from others. And I think pulling it into full scope for me of realizing and comprehending the illusion of, in and of itself, of love and reality has helped me with having a kid and being a father. Because right now, at this point in Oliver's life, I think he's too young. We don't have as big of a bond that'll grow over the years. But in the immediate moment, it's an illusion to need my kid to love me. And starting out a relationship with something like that, another being like that, has changed my perspective a lot. And it's made me think about that a lot, of just how irrelevant it is to seek love, and how much we, for whatever reason, we regularly talk about that as if it's an important subject, to need to be loved by people. So that's what it's done. That's what it's done for me. Yeah, I think that's what it's done. Okay, next one. Great question. Thank you for letting me think through that. This is a little quick one that we can hammer through before we get to this last one. I'm doing 4 today, but the bull asked me this question, Mr. Steve McGuigan, who goes on, hopefully he's on the next one. I know I've been talking about him a lot lately, but let's get him on here. And he asked me about it, and he said, what's your new studio design look like? Let the viewers send in suggestions. And he just texted me before this about how I think he wants to do like a suggestion box or something for the studio. If you've been following along a little bit, I'm gonna do a studio setup for the summer at Minnesota Mash in Savage, Minnesota. Steve McGuigan's the owner of Minnesota Mash, Mash Performance, Mash Campus, Mash Academy, Mash, you name it, they got it. They just got a nice new espresso machine in there, and we're gonna be ripping coffees, espressos. I think we got to get a pour over still. And we're going to be doing some shows in that studio setup. And I don't think I can do in real time here on the show of letting viewers send in suggestions on how they want the studio to look, but maybe you guys can send me a DM right in the comments of what you guys want to see in a studio setup at MASH for the summer. I think it'll be a lot easier when you actually see us in video at the studio. Probably a little bit harder right now, and I don't really care enough right now, sorry Steve, to try to explain this whole setup. I'd rather just you guys see it on the socials, and you can suggest as we go along. But the new studio design, what's it look like? We're kind of going intellectual, schoolish vibe on it, university style. I think we're going to play heavily into that MASH Academy that they have going, which I'll save the details. Steve can maybe talk about that a little bit on some of the future shows. I don't want to steal his thunder. And that's kind of the vibe, but it's going to be at Minnesota MASH, and they got a studio set up. You'll see some of these evolutions of the moment with Mart. We'll have an actual legit professional setup. I'm really stoked about it, and a lot of good people over there, Savage, Minnesota, and it's gonna be fun. And as you've heard over the past shows over the last couple of months, I'm a big believer that you think the way in which your environment is designed. So I think if we design the studio to look really nice and professional and clean, I would imagine that our thinking goes up and we evolve and we're better thinkers. We run a better show. So there's a quick one. We just kind of pounced through that one. Now, this one I got. Danny File sent me a text. I haven't seen Danny in a few years. I hope he's doing really well. Baseball guy, coaches, I believe, still. I'm sure he's still doing that. And loves the game, always has. Was a good player. And he sends me a text on Monday. Wow, this week. So he got it in early. I haven't gotten many text questions. They usually always come through DMs. But this one was great. Coffee Buzz question from Mr. File to Harvey Martin. Has your manifestations and visions come more from trying to control them or surrender to them? Has your manifestations and visions come more from trying to control them or surrender to them? There's two sides of this. And I think of the two philosophers. We're going to put Buddha in the aspect of philosopher for this. You have Nietzsche's work, which was largely to essentially grab life by the horns, we'll say, and to control everything and immerse yourself into your life to the fullest and make everything come to manifestation because of your absolute pure discipline, which I can definitely get behind that school of thought for sure. And then you have the Buddha aspect, which is sort of the exact opposite. Buddha was very much so about surrendering and letting things happen, attaching to nothing. That's a lot of the Tao, right? And those are more Eastern anyways. And Nietzsche was a German philosopher, so more Western. Western in the religious sense, it's a more of an intellectual side. You look at the Abraham religions, there's a lot of intellect that's put into that, a lot of knowledge that you need to know and understand and acquire. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you're a Muslim, if you practice that religion, I'm pretty sure you have to memorize the Quran, right? And so the expectation and standard of knowing the knowledge and the information is very high. Whereas you go eastward and you study something like Taoism or Confucianism, Shintoism, some of those ones, that's more Japan. I mean, and the Tao is that era too. The Tao's got a little bit more reach, I think. And you still have Buddhism, you have Hinduism, right? And Hinduism has some gods. Buddhism doesn't have a god. It's more of an atheist religion, even though I know those ones are more religious. And I know Taoism it's definitely, it can go either or. You can have it as a religion or a philosophy. But those concepts, so I use those two because if you think of those two as people, well, one's kind of in this Eastern religious philosophy style, one's sort of in this Western intellectual knowledge-based religious style with gods and then kind of have no gods on the Eastern side. I know I've sprinkled in Hinduism because they do have gods in their religious belief, in their faith. And it's not that Taoist doesn't have a God. They just consider everything as God. This is God, right? It's all one thing connected. And it's less about attachment. It's about surrendering and letting things flow. Woo-wee, right? In flow. And, but the question's directed at me. I just think of those two people because I like both sides of I can get behind both concepts. I can very much so get behind the philosophy of Nietzsche, and he was more in the last couple hundred years, especially when the world was starting to industrialize and have a little bit more technology to it and information to it. It's different time than Buddha, so maybe they're not the greatest comparisons, but they are, I think, for this question in general. And so do I have one that I would say, do I control them and try to grab as much knowledge as possible and work as hard as possible and be extremely disciplined? Yes. I mean, yes, I do. And I do try to control what I'm doing and execute my visions and manifestations of the future. At the same time, I can also equally say yes to more of a Buddhist thought and more of a surrender and to let things come to me and to attach to nothing, be open to everything. I've been both, and I've seen both of them have success. So I think, and I've done both, and I've seen both of them fail, which is, I think, the concept of duality, or the mastermind of paradox, for whatever reason that the human has to experience, is that opposites, right? But if I were to get not as philosophical, maybe a little bit more direct, and actually talk about things that I've visualized in my life and how they've come about, the way in which I've grown as a person, we'll start there. I do meditate regularly, pretty much every day, and I have for many years. And most of my visions have come out of meditation. And in meditation, your brain has the ability to get excited about the future. And you can start to feel that form itself, that awareness, you can start to feel that form itself through you. And I think that's the consistency of the regularity of meditating and visualizing regularly, is that you feel that habitual excitement that gets you to move and act throughout your day. And so they work together. Right? I'm surrendering to the possibility or the potential of the future when I'm in meditation. I'm allowing the things to come into my conscious awareness, and my body surrenders to the experience or the sensations that I'm feeling, and I'm allowing that to happen. That's in a lot of ways, that's how the manifestation is forming, the vision is forming. But what comes out of the vision is the momentum to move and act. And I've always called it the time delay until you get to the checkpoint of achievement, meaning there's a time delay, right? You don't have a vision that morning and then that night have something come to you. Now that does happen a lot. The synchronicity does happen a lot, where you're calling something or feeling something and it does come to you in that moment. But I'm taking this more so of long-term visions, right? Or deep pursuits that your behaviors have to change in the way to getting to them. For example, I had an elbow surgery when I was 19, and from my memory, well, this could be different now, but from what I remember being told, is that I would never pitch again competitively. I'd be able to play baseball competitively, but I would not be able to pitch. And something in me knew, I didn't know how, I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew that I would pitch again, and I knew that I would play professional baseball as a pitcher. I knew it right away. And I was 19 when that happened. I didn't play professionally until I was 23, so there was a time delay. Oh, the person I was the day before the surgery, or the day before getting that news, to the person I was when I signed to play professional baseball was an entirely different person. My behaviors were different. My mindset was different. My energy was different. The way in which I attacked my life and my day was different. And so I ended up becoming the professional baseball player, which is where I think manifestation gets really, it gets clouded in the importance of the path, the importance of the action. Because when I did become the pro baseball player, the only thing that the day I signed a professional baseball did for me mentally was it confirmed the possibility of visualization and the truth that comes about manifestation. It just confirmed that I was capable of more. So it was like a stamp on a journey that said, yes, you are capable of doing certain things that you put your mind to. I think we need a lot of that for our success and our ability to visualize in the first place. I do think that we need to see success, right? Success in a way breeds its own success. But what really came out of that was the different person. And even to this day, if I would not have had the elbow surgery, I would not attack things in business the way I do. I wouldn't attack things like a podcast or writing a book the way that I've been able to do certain things. And that doesn't have to have monetary attachment or material achievement to it. I'm talking about the ability to challenge and push myself, right? I've really learned how to do that. I've learned how to expose myself, and I've learned how to get uncomfortable. But what I'm most grateful for through manifestation and vision setting, and I'll bring it all to completion, is the fact that when you manifest something in the future and you let it go, this is how I've understood it. You let it go. I see something that I want in my mind and I'm manifesting it. I'm surrendering to it because it's really, it's quantum physics. There's so many variables that I'm open to the field of potential. So I'm surrendering. I'm giving in. I'm letting go. I'm attached to none of it. I don't care how it looks, right? And I think that's how any of my successes have been. I don't care necessarily what it looks like, so I'm going to surrender to it. But as far as controlling them, what happens when you really visualize something of the future that you can feel, that you believe deeply that you're capable of, it starts to burn all the unworthy parts of your psyche that you currently have. And so, in order to move through the burning phase, and the story I just gave you is about a 4-year burning phase, you have to control your action and you have to control your decisions and your disciplines and your routines and your habits. And you have to control your day. You have to control your mood, your emotions, your thoughts. And so, they work together. And I think if you get trapped in either or, in a radical side of thinking, no, I manifest and then I just let it come to me and I don't do anything, I just surrender, it's pretty easy to tell that that doesn't happen. That just won't work out. But at the same time, if you grip anything so aggressively and think that you have control over everything, you lose it. And you see that a lot with athletes. I mean, it's a bummer when you watch an athlete. For me, my perspective has been so tied up in professional sports for the last couple of years. But when you see an athlete who's on their free agency year and they see the pressure, they see the money they could make and how much money they could not make if they don't do well, and they try so hard to control their career that they fail because they just grip it and they kill it. Happens in college all the time too. But then you see the people who are just such laissez-faire and they surrender and they let things come to them and they have some success, right? But I don't think I guess the answer to this is that I don't think either. I think they both work together. So I think the answer to your question is actually in the question. And can you balance that? And in of itself, that becomes a paradox. And in a way, this can be a thought experiment as we kind of close here. It can be a thought experiment for a religious perspective because we talked about religion in this. But, I think one of the cool things in a theology point of view when you study religion, do you have the wherewithal to read or study cultures and study them because of the culture? That'd be a cool thought experiment to have based off that question, right? Can I read the Christian religion and the Tao verses, which you can read in an hour. Can I read both of those and study them? Not for anything particular, not to control them, not to surrender to them. Can I read them and just be in the human experience while I experience very similar but then different approaches? I think anything that we do in our life, if we can hold both and just learn from them, I think it'll help with that question. I think it's the same thing with politics. Can you just be and experience the perspectives of them? And then the same thing with sports. Can you just be and watch an opposing team against an opposing team and just sort of watch them, just observe them, just become mindful to them? And I think when you become mindful to manifestation and visions, I think that's the point of how we get them. Because when you're mindful to what's coming into you, you can see it, you can feel it, you can experience it, you can understand it, and you can let it go. You can let the limitlessness of yourself be itself and let yourself remain limitless and just continue to expand yourself while simultaneously running out a habitual process of discipline, being very obedient to a journey and who you are and controlling that in every aspect of your life. And so it's kind of a zoom in, zoom out scenario. And I think we get best access to that understanding when we zoom in and zoom out of all the things that the world has to offer. So happy Friday. Coffee Buzz Friday. I got a torn shirt here that I've been really digging. It didn't come like this, if you can't see, but I got a torn shirt. I like it like that. It makes me feel good. I don't know what. I think that's, if I ever have a clothing brand, I think I'm going to have torn shirt clothes. And then I got this cardigan over top of it because that's just a vibe, right? Cheers to you all. Love you guys. Enjoy your weekends. Goodbye.